Hi, boys and girls. It's Miss Boswell here again. I hope that you had another wonderful week of Camp Challenge on the go, and I hope that you enjoyed making the plant craft last week, learning about all the different parts of the plant. I did want to remind you all before we get started today that at the end of the video there will be a poll question, and don't forget that you can answer the poll question in the comments, and by doing that you can be entered into a prize at the end of the week. So don't forget to do that. All right, well, for today's science lesson activities, we are going to first go through a couple slides on a PowerPoint. We have a really fun video that we're going to watch to learn a little bit more about our topic, and then we have a fun craft to do. So let's go ahead and get started. Today we are talking about the layers of the Earth. So first, let's talk about Earth. Earth is the planet that we live on. So you're probably familiar with what's on Earth's surface, like the land here and the water. But do you know what's inside of the Earth? That's what we're going to learn about today. So the Earth is made up of 4 layers. We have the crust, mantle, outer core, and inner core. And this diagram over here shows us those different layers. So first let's start off learning about the crust. The crust is the outer solid layer and is where life as we know it exists with mountains, sea, and soil. So I have this picture over here, and this black arrow is pointing to the crust. See, it has the mountains, the sea, soil underneath. So that's the part that we live on that you're probably very familiar with. Next we have the mantle. The mantle makes up about 85% of the Earth's weight. It is made of melted iron, minerals, and other semi-solid rocks that can flow under pressure. So again, the same picture over here, but instead, this time, the arrow is pointing to what is underneath of the crust. So this is the mantle right here. It gets a lot hotter as we move down. All right, then the next part is the core. So we have the inner and outer core. Both are made of the same materials, iron and nickel, but the inner core is solid and the outer core is liquid. The inner core is solid because the pressure is so much higher in the very center of Earth. The inner core is as hot as the sun's surface. That is like so hot, I don't even know if you can imagine it. So over here again, we have the crust on the outside, the mantle, which is made up of those rocks. Then this is the outer core, the red part, and this is the inner core, that yellow part right there. All right, so to learn a little bit more about these layers, I found a really fun video for us to watch. All right, so he just gave us a ton more information about these different layers of the Earth. So now that we know a little bit more about them, it's time to get crafty. We're going to make a craft that is going to help us remember the different layers of the Earth. So here are the materials that you're going to need. A paper plate, colored paper, blue, green, black, red, orange, and yellow. You're going to need a pencil or some kind of black writing utensil, maybe a black colored pencil, maybe if you have a pen or a marker or something like that, and scissors and glue. This is kind of what our craft is going to look like here. So this is going to be our different layers, and then we're also going to make the outside of the Earth, the crust, which is the part that you're more familiar with. All right, so let's go ahead and get started with our craft. All right, so I have all of the different papers that we need right now. The blue and the green is going to be our outside, so we're not going to use that right away. Right now, we're going to take our black piece of paper, and that is going to be our crust. Okay, I'm going to take the paper plate, and I'm going to put it face down on top of the black piece of paper, and this is when you're going to need maybe a pencil or some kind of writing utensil, and you're going to trace around the whole entire circle, and then we're going to cut it out. So it's okay if it goes off the paper a little bit. Okay, so I don't know if you can really see. Here are my lines a little bit. All right, as long as you can see them, you're good to go. Okay, after you've drawn that, you're going to go ahead and cut it out. And this black paper is going to represent the core. But like I said, though, remember the core is the part that we live on. So that's also going to be like the water and the land. But this is just going to help us for what the inside is going to look like. Okay, so once you have that cut out, there we go. That is going to be, I guess, kind of like our base for this. Remember, this is our crust. All right, so remember that the crust is the very smallest part of the layers. So we are then going to take our red paper and we're going to use, so last time we used the outside, or like we went face down, use the outside. This time we're going to use the back of the paper plate and we're going to try to trace it underneath if you can. It's okay if it's not perfect, we're just trying our best here. Okay, so again, I don't know if you can kind of see my lines a little bit. So once you have that, go ahead and cut it out. If at any point I'm moving too fast, feel free to pause this video, like I always tell you guys. That way you can get yourself caught up. Okay, here is my circle. Not perfect, that's okay. I know it's a little hard to trace underneath over here. All right, so remember, like I said, that the crust is the smallest part of our Earth, so it's gonna just be really, really tiny. Actually, I guess it probably even should be tinier, but that's okay. All right, we are going to go ahead and glue our mantle down. That's the next layer of the Earth. Okay. All right, you're gonna take the red paper, put some glue on that. Not a whole bunch, just enough. Something like this. Okay, and you're gonna wanna put that right in the center of the black circle. Like this. Okay, so we have our crest, we have our mantle. Remember that the mantle takes up 85% of Earth's weight. It is the largest layer. So the next part is going to be our core. And remember, we have two cores, outer core, inner core. All right. So this circle, if you don't have anything to trace it with, because our paper plate's going to be a little bit too big now, you're just going to want to make sure that it probably takes up like something like this. So it's not going to be too big, because again, remember that the mantle is the thickest layer. Okay, here's my circle. I just kind of freehanded it. All right. There we go. So if yours ended up being a little bit too big, no worries. Just cut again, make it a little bit smaller, okay? Again, remember the mantle is the thickest part. It's the thickest layer, so we want to see a lot of red. All right, after you have gotten the size that you want, we're going to put some glue on here. Glue our orange circle onto our red circle. All right, we have our crust, mantle, outer core. The very last part is going to be our inner core. We're going to use yellow for that. The inner core is going to be even smaller than the outer core. So you're going to want to make an even smaller circle. Not like too teeny though. Just like I said, if you have, maybe you want to make it, if it's too big, you can always cut it to make it smaller. Okay, here's mine. Not too big. Okay. There we go. So see, that's going to be my inner core. Again, if you made yours a little bit too big, that's okay. Just draw another circle, make it a little bit smaller, and cut it out. Once you have the size that you want, again, you're going to put some glue on there. Not too much, though. Nice. And you're going to put that right in the center of the orange circle. All right. So now we have our layers of the earth. Again, we have our crust, the outside, the mantle. That is the thickest layer. We have our outer core and our inner core. Remember, the inner core is like as hot as the sun's surface. It is so hot in there. All right, what we're going to do is we're going to actually go ahead and label. Since we used black paper for the crust, we're not going to be able to see the word crust on there. No big deal, but we can label the rest of these though. So the red part is the mantle. M-A-N-T-L-E. The mantle. Okay, then we have the outer core. Like that. And then we have the inner core. Just like that. All right, so now that we have kind of what the earth would look like on the inside, now we can go ahead and make the outside of the earth, the part that, or the side of the earth that you guys are more familiar with. So let's first start by, I'm actually just going to put this over to the side for a second, our layers. I am going to now take my blue paper and I'm going to put my paper plate down on the blue paper, and we're going to again trace around it. We're doing this for the blue because we want the core layer to be the same size as our earth. Okay. You guys can see my lines and all a little bit. All right, once you have yours, go ahead and cut it out again. We're using the blue paper because there is a ton more water on Earth than there is land. So the water is going to kind of be our background, since there's so much more. Okay. So here's my earth without any of the land on it. So now what we're going to do is we're going to take our green paper, and you can just make, we're not going to make the exact continents, so I guess just kind of like green blobs in a way. Or if you want, you can go ahead, pause the video, and maybe even look up some of the continent shapes to try to match them and put them on our globe. All right, so let's see. I'm just gonna kind of draw like North America, where we live, from memory. Okay. I think I drew it a little bit too big. That's okay. Like I said, you're just kind of drawing green blobs, really. And then, okay. So I just kind of have some green blobs, tried to make them look like the continents from memory. And then you're going to cut them out. It's okay if it's not perfect because the land is not perfectly round or any shape. All right. It's supposed to be my North America and my South America. My South America came out a little too small. Whoops. All right. And then let's go ahead and add another little bit, maybe to represent Europe and Asia. Okay, so this is kind of what I have. Just like I said, some green blobs. I tried to make them look a little bit like the continents, but all right. And then after you have that, you're going to go ahead and glue them down. Now we have our Earth. And what we can do is actually glue the backs of them together. So we have the inside and we'll have the outside. And then you've made your Earth to represent the different layers on the inside. All right. I bet you guys did an awesome job. I so wish that I could see them. So now what I want you to do in the comments is I want you to tell me one new fact that you learned about Earth. We had a lot in the PowerPoint slides, then we watched that video that gave us a ton of facts. So just pick one thing, any one thing that you learned about Earth and leave it in the comments. And yeah, I think that's it for today. So I hope that you guys have a great rest of your day, great rest of your week, and I will see you next time. Bye.